Startup India scheme. Since the new government has come into being in 2014, the Make in India and Skill India have been the buzzwords of development strategy of the government. Along with this also has come a strategy for giving a boost to the startup companies, industries, firms and entrepreneurs. On the Independence Day of August 2015, Prime Minister Narendra Modi introduced the Startup India scheme and Stand Up India initiative. And on January 26, 2016, recently, he unveiled 19-point action plan for startup enterprises in India. It was an all-inclusive action plan to boost such ventures that would boost employment generation and wealth creation. Two most important initiatives in this connection were a self-certification scheme related to 9 labor and environmental laws. This would involve that there would be no inspection of enterprises during the first 3 years of the launch. Now, in this essay, we will understand what is meant by a startup entity and why is it important and what are the initiatives of the government and what are the criteria for identifying such startups. Now, before we go into details, let us understand what is a startup entity. A startup entity is an entity that is headquartered in India and which was opened less than 5 years ago, and it should have an annual turnover of less than 25 crores. Startup India campaign is based on action plan that is aimed to promote bank financing for startup ventures, and it will boost the entrepreneurship and encourage startups with the job creation. It is focused to restrict the role of states in policy domain, and it will get rid of the license Raj that was earlier, and it will clear the hindrances like the land permissions, foreign investment proposals, environmental clearances. This was organized by the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, that is DIPP. Now, let us see what are the detailed criteria for identifying a startup company. Now, the definition that has been given for the startups under the Startup India and Stand Up India scheme is limited to get benefits under this scheme, and it is not a general or legal definition that has been given to the startup companies. It means, for example, Flipkart or Ola may be called up startups in general. However, they will not be eligible to get a benefit under the startup scheme because their turnover is much higher than the 25 crores limited. Now, startup entity or a business, this should be registered as a private limited company, and it should have a limited liability, and that would be under the LLP Act of 2008, and the private limited company should be under the Companies Act of 2013. Could be a registered partnership firm as well, and it has to be under the Indian Partnership Act of 1932. Now, as regards the age of the entity or the company must not be older than 5 years. It means the date of application for Startup India scheme and the startup must be registered for less than 5 years, and any company registered before the date of announcement of the scheme is also eligible for the scheme. As regards the annual turnover of startups, it should not be, as said before, more than 25 crore rupees in any preceding financial year. The fourth criteria is that the startup company should have a highly innovative product or a service, and the startup must be working towards the innovation, development of new products, processes or services, and it should be basically driven by the technology or the intellectual property. The fifth is there should not be any splitting of existing company so that they can claim the specific benefits by the government as a startup company. This means dividing an existing company and floating a new company to get a benefit under the plan is not allowed. The government has already launched the PMMY and Mudra Bank, which is a new institution that is set up for development and refinancing activities that are related to the micro units, that is startup companies, and there is a refinance fund of 200 crore rupees that has been already provided. The Startup India initiative is also aimed to promote entrepreneurship among the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes and also women communities. The government announced very specific schemes and programs for the startup initiatives, and it has outlined 19 plans for the startup companies. Now let us see briefly what are they. One is a self-certification. The startups will adopt a self-certification to reduce the regulatory liabilities. The self-certification will apply to laws including payment of gratuity, labor contract, provident fund management, water and air pollution acts. Second, the Startup India Hub will be established, and it is an all India hub that will be created as a single contact point for startup foundations in India. And this will help the entrepreneurs to exchange knowledge and also access the financial aid directly. Third is the startup companies can register through apps. An online portal has been created and it is in the shape of a mobile application, and it will be launched to help startup founders to easily register. And this app is supposed to be launched in April 1st. Fourth is the patent protection for the startup companies. There will be a fast track system for patent examination at lower cost, and it is being planned by the central government. This system will promote awareness and adoption of the intellectual property rights by the startup foundations. Now this startup scheme has been given a big boost with the provision of 10,000 crore rupees fund. The government will develop fund with an initial corpus of 2,500 crore rupees, and the total corpus would be ultimately 10,000 crore rupees over a period of 4 years. And it will support upcoming startup enterprises. The Life Insurance Corporation of India also will play a major role in developing this corpus. A committee of private professionals selected from the startup industries will manage this fund. That is an important aspect of the startup initiative. Now, the sixth scheme is the National Credit Guarantee Trust Company. This is basically an entity that is conceptualized with a budget of 500 crore rupees per year, and for the next 4 years it will have a support flow of funds to the startup companies released through this. It is an important institutional arrangement. Another important benefit that has been announced and which most of the startup companies welcomed was that there would be no capital gains tax for the startup companies. At present, investments by venture capital funds are exempt from the capital gains tax. The same policy will be implemented on primary level investments in the startup companies. And another important income tax exemption concession is startups would not pay income tax for first 3 years. This policy would in fact supposed to revolutionize the pace with which the startups would grow in the future. Further, there would be tax exemption for investments of higher value. For example, in case of an investment of higher value than the market price, it will be exempt from the paying taxes. Now, building entrepreneurs. innovation related study plans for students in 5 lakh schools will be initiated, and further there will also be an annual incubator grand challenge to develop world class incubators. Further, there is what is called Atal Innovation Mission. Under this mission, there will be boost for the innovation, and it will encourage the talented youths by giving a financial and technical assistance. There will also be setting up of incubators. A private-public partnership model is being considered for 35 new incubators and 31 innovation centers at the national institutes. Further, to support these startup companies, there will be research parks. Now, government plans to set up 7 new research parks, and this would include 6 in the Indian Institute of Technology campuses and 1 in the Indian Institute of Science campus. And there will be investment of 100 crore rupees in each of these research parks. There will also be entrepreneurship in biotechnology. The government will further establish a few new biotech clusters, 50 new bio incubators, 150 technology transfer offices, and 20 BioConnect offices in the country. There will be dedicated programs in the schools for the startup companies at the school level itself. The government will introduce innovation-related programs for students in over 5 lakh schools. Now, continuing, there will be legal support for the startup companies, and there will be a panel of facilitators to provide a legal support and assistance in submitting patent applications and other official documents. What are the specific rebates for the startup companies? There will be rebate of an amount of 80% of the total value, and it will be provided to the entrepreneurs on filing patent applications. Easy rolls will be the most welcome feature of the startup companies. Norms of public procurement and rules of trading have been simplified for startup companies. And in case the startup companies fail to take off and they fail, there will be faster exit processes. This will assist the entrepreneurs to find a suitable solutions for the problems, because if they fail again, the government will provide an easy way out. Now let us have an overall look at as to what is the role of the government in all these various areas and the states. The Ministry of Human Resource and Development and the Development of Science and Technology have agreed to partner in an initiative to set up over 75 such startup hubs in the National Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Information Technology, Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, and National Institutes of Pharmaceutical Education Centers. And there would be SoftBank, which would be headquartered in Japan, and this has invested $2 billion into the Indian startups already. The Japanese firms have pledged already total investment of $10 billion. Now there is a Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, and that takes initiatives to refinance the micro units. Now, what initiatives have been taken at different states? For example, in southern states of the nation have shown great performance, especially Karnataka, Kerala, Andhra and Telangana. They have the results better than the rest of the country in terms of their policies and implementations for supporting startups. Their focus has been in improving infrastructure, especially in the Tier 2 cities. Now, Bangalore will have to get a special mention. Bangalore is a metro city of Karnataka and is known as the Silicon Valley of India. Kerala is also well known for the government's startup policy, that is the Kerala IT Mission. It focuses on investments for the state startup ecosystem. It also made India's first telecom incubator startup village. That was in 2012 itself. The state also matches the funding raised by its incubator from central government with a 1:1 ratio. Now, Telangana is also not lagged behind. It has launched the largest incubation center in India, that is T-Hub. Then comes the Andhra Pradesh, which has a technological research and innovation park as a research and development laboratory. It has also created a fund called Initial Innovation Fund of 100 crore rupees for the startup entrepreneurs. The government of Madhya Pradesh similarly has collaborated with the Small Industries Development Bank of India, and it has created a fund of 200 crore rupees for encouraging the startup companies. Rajasthan has launched Startup Oasis scheme. Now, a special mention also has to be made about the startups in education and educational institution alliances. Under this scheme, a group of startups will acknowledge or enter into an memorandum of understanding with the prestigious institutions, and they will also establish the startup centers in the campus. Now, there is a NIT, Silchar, National Institute of Technology in Silchar, which is one of the institutions of the country to join the program of IIT Madras. It is also linked with the campaign. The institution has been successfully managing 7 research parks that have incubated many startup companies. Now, it has to be noted that the quality of education in the institutions has been always questioned, and it is not found matching with the organization standards for the required skill sets, and they will have to expend on the training the freshers. The country has also launched Skill India campaign for addressing this issue. Though we talked about the eligibility criteria of startup companies, we will summarize the same thing again. The exemptions and benefits under the startup initiative can be enjoyed by the startups who fulfill the 6 specific eligibility criteria. Criteria 1 is the business must be privately limited company or a one-person company or a LLP or a registered partnership firm. Criteria 2 is the turnover of the company must be less than 25 crore rupees in the last financial year. Criteria 3, the company must not be older than 5 years. Criteria 4, only startups companies that have been involved in developing and commercializing are eligible for this, and it should have a new product or a service or a process, and it should significantly improve the existing product or service or a process to create or add value to the customers. Now, criteria 5 is the certification from the Inter-Ministerial Board is a must for getting a 3 years tax exemptions. The startup company will have to get a recommendation or funding requirement from the agencies that have been set up in this connection. The startup application for the scheme must be supported by a recommendation, certificate or innovative nature of a business from any one of the recognized establishment in this connection. The accompanied flow chart shows the identification and eligibility criteria for getting benefit under the Startup India scheme.